Welcome to Career Coffee Chat Live. I'm your host, my friends. I'm happy to welcome you today to the show. My name is Erin Urban. I'm super excited to share with you how to live a life you love living. I mean, why live a life that you don't want to be in? So that's the topic of our show today, my friends. Come on in, pull up a chair, pull on your headphones if you're at work, and pretend like you're super busy because we're going to have a great conversation about how to live a life you love living. And now I don't know about you, but let's just rewind, do the Scooby Doo rewind. Of course, I'm dating myself. We're going to go back in time. And here's me, about over 20 years ago or so. I was miserable. I was in corporate heck. No, it's in corporate hell. Let's just say it. This is my show. I can say what I want. I was in cubicle hell. I was, and I did not like what I was doing. I did not like my life. And I thought I was doing all the things I should be doing. So if this resonates with you, my friends, come on in because we'll be talking about, with our excellent guest today, how to create that life you love to live. Now, Stacy says, shift from living in the land of should and create success on your terms. Connect what you're truly meant to do and love your life. Now, our guest, Stacy McAlpine, PMP, she's a project management professional. For those of you who I know following my show and the podcast who are project management professionals, she knows what she's doing. She's in project management. She's going to share her journey and how she transformed from just surviving an inauthentic life with overwhelming stress and a mental overload. So if this is something you can relate to, I'm happy to welcome you to the show. Now, don't be shy. Say hi as you tune in either live now or watching the replay later. Send us a note. We want to hear from you. Or if you're watching the podcast, which is available on all the channels, give me a thumbs up, a star rating, because your feedback is important to me. And I'm excited today to help walk down this journey to discover the first steps to defining what you're meant to do and identify those top saboteurs that get in the way of living your fullest life because we do all have them. And most importantly, connect to your zone of genius so you can transform and thrive. Now, more about our wonderful guest today. Stacy McAlpine is the founder and CEO of Journey Fuel, and she's a life transformation specialist. She's been helping people actualize their desires for more than 20 years. So I'm really, really excited to welcome Stacy to the show. Stacy, it's so great to see you.
Oh, thank you for having me on. Very excited to
Absolutely.
share.
Absolutely. And for those of you tuning in now or later, like I said, don't be shy. I'd love to welcome you to the show. As you come on in, say hi, say where you're from, because we want to welcome you to the show. And if you have any questions, we're here for you. So please do give us a comment, engage with us as we're live, or reach out and replay later, of course. Now, Stacy, you know my biggest question that I have pretty much for all guests that come on Career Coffee Chat live or the podcast is, what was that catalyst that got
Yeah.
you from being in the big four? I mean, successful, professional, and now shifting to help transform people's lives. What was that? What was that catalyst for you?
Well, it certainly didn't happen overnight. I mean, I had the vision of wanting to be able to help people get out of what I went through about a decade ago,
Mm,
um, in the middle of my career, and just I was in a place where I was working 50, 60-hour weeks. It was like when you
mm,
did the intro of the show, right? Working 50, 60-hour weeks, working in big consulting firms, helping
mhm,
organizations around the globe that are some of the biggest organizations on the planet do big projects, change management, process improvement, business process reengineering, all
yeah,
those
that
big,
sounds a lot like my background.
right? Yeah. So it's how to make things better, right? And I enjoyed that. But at the same time, I had a daughter, a little one with one on the way. I had a husband who was in law school full time, racking up the
Wow.
$200,000 in, law school loans. I was the only one bringing in the cash and paying bills with all of that cash. I had a stepdaughter at the time. And it was just, I felt like life was purgatory.
Mm,
It was awful, and I could not see the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, how do you get out of debt like that? I think I had
right.
$98,000 in credit card debt, but it's like upside down mortgage. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
was just thinking, I'm working so hard, And I don't even get to live the life of what that is because I'm surviving. And, I was at a time when I actually was at the mall. So talk about dating, right? Dating ourselves at the mall with a client that had become a good friend. And she just looked at me and she was like, you are losing your light. Something needs to change. My daughter was skipping down the mall pathway and I was snapping at her for being a kid. Because I was just on edge. Like everything was on edge. I
Mhm.
was certainly not being who I wanted to be as a mother and a role model to what, life could be like for my own kids. And, she said it at the right time. When
Mhm.
you'll hear it over and over and over. And it's sort of like telling a working mom to take a nap. It's like, thanks. Never thought of that. Hot tip. Thank you. Never thought I should take a nap. Awesome thought.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly how am I going to pull that off? So it's like, yeah, you need something different. Like, yeah, I got that. But, it was just, I get back from the mall, getting into my minivan, putting my kid in the snapping her into her car seat, hoping she'd fall asleep. And I turned on the music and it was this CD again, dating myself. And it was a Hallmark CD. I don't know if you'd ever seen those. I don't even know how to find them anymore, but it was called A Drive in the Country. So it's like this peaceful music,
Oh, nice.
what
Yeah.
I used to listen to when I was dating my husband. And it was like, we used to be so happy just enjoying this drive. And I could not relate. There wasn't a cell in my body that could
Mhm.
feel that way. Like that was gone, all of it. There was nothing enjoyable about my life that I could even come close to
That's
even
so awful.
knowing what that feeling was anymore. And I just started bawling, like not crying, like, lots of like snot kind of crying.
Ugly cry. Got
Yeah,
it.
I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like, God, how? And I had no way. I was like, how the hell am I going to get out of this? How is that? How sad is that? So anyway, I get home, blah, blah, blah. Life goes back to normal. And then, like a couple weeks later, I was watching this movie called Flicka. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's this kid that falls in love with this horse that has kind of a broken spirit, and they bond. And Tim McGraw's in it, I think. And they live
Mhm.
out on this farm. And understood, this is a movie. I get it. But I was watching this and I thought, oh my God, nobody has a Blackberry. Not one person. Again, dating ourselves.
Mhm.
Nobody had a Blackberry. Nobody was like on their laptop constantly all day, fielding phone calls from whoever, whenever, with the expectation that you were going to turn it on right there. They didn't,
Right.
they had stress. They were paying for the farm, trying to figure that out. But it was
Mhm.
a very different life.
It's a
And
very
I
different
thought,
life, right? You weren't on
wow,
call.
right? Like not everybody is in consulting. Not everybody is, doing the 2 hour commute. Not everybody is living in this area that's super expensive. And there are choices that we made.
Mhm.
And I realized, wow, I'm the one who is responsible for this. I did this. I chose to support my husband at the time to go to law school. I chose to go into a really pressure filled career path. I
Mhm.
chose to be in all of these different scenarios. And also, sometimes people are like, well, you can't always choose. Sometimes things get put on you. Yeah, at the same time, there are a lot of things that we're choosing that are putting ourselves in these situations. And so I just
She'll be back momentarily, but we can relate to her story. I'm sure that you can relate to her story. We've all been there. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're tuning in now or later, I know that you've been there. How does that relate to you? I mean, taking your laptop with you on vacation, or taking that phone call when you're on a family trip, or having to respond to the boss at 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the evening. Yeah, I mean, we can all relate and we've all been there. And some of us are there right now. It's very interesting because last week I did a workshop at ASQ Quality Summit 4.0. And that workshop was about how to elevate your impact, particularly now in the future of work. We don't have to live this way. I mean, this is, and we are now more than ever, I think, more aware that we are self authoring and that we do have choices. So while the pace of life is going like 90 miles an hour and it feels like we can't even catch our breath, we're overwhelmed and probably maybe even toying with burnout, it doesn't have to be that way. So if this relates to you or you're struggling with some of the same things that Stacy is sharing with you today and I'm sharing with you today, reach out to us, pop a comment in the chat, or just send us a note personally. So let's see. Hey, Stacy, how are you doing?
I get so animated that I think I might have like ripped out some cord or something.
You knocked the internet off just talking
Like
with
the
your
whole
hand.
internet was like, geez, we can't handle this level
No,
of
that's
energy.
fine. That's fine. I was just sharing with the audience. I think a lot of us can relate. I mean, to what you're sharing because I
Yeah,
think many of us have been there, and we wake up and we realize, oh my God, one, I just this is not what I want to do with my life. It's not how I want to live. I'm miserable. I'm unfulfilled. I'm unhappy. I'm stressed out. I'm overwhelmed. Maybe I'm
yeah,
burned out. Maybe even health issues. And yet, some of these choices, yeah, we made them, and some of them we feel like we're doing the right thing. We're doing
hmm,
the right
right.
thing
You
by
should be
strapping
doing that.
ourselves to this ladder climb or working
Yeah,
for the big four or working all these hours or trying to be a certain way because that's what you should be doing.
right. You should be doing that, right? You
Mhm.
should do this. You should. Well, and we have to choose our way out. We
Mhm.
chose our way in, and the only way out is when we choose our way out. And
Right.
I've been a big personal development nerd my whole life, and reading all the books, going to all the things, Stephen Covey, you've got the Tony Robbins, you've got every
Mhm.
book you can imagine that I would try and read, and but I wasn't doing it. I wasn't doing it. I was like, yeah, that sounds really good. Oh my god, that would change my life. I do the exercise, at least part of it, and then get
Did
back to
nothing.
life.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, well, I'm doing all of these things for my clients. I'm a change management person. That's what I was doing. Companies
Right.
are paying millions of dollars for us to come in and do major transformations for them, project management, process improvement. That's the same thing in our own lives, right? It's
Mhm.
change management. How do you get from where you are to where you want to be? And what are the things that you can put in place that are going to get you there? And that's what I did for a living. And I wasn't doing it for myself. And I realized, and I was always on this quest, in the personal development world, there's always a solution. This is going to change your life. We're going to transform your life. And you go and you listen, and it's like, yeah. And then you go back and you're like, how am I going to do that?
I feel like you listen to
Now
Tony
what do
Robbins. Yeah,
I
he's
do?
a great
Right.
motivator. There's no substance there. I mean,
There's no
I'm not a
how.
fan.
It's not about the implementation. There's a
Right.
lot missing on the implementation side. And so I thought, okay, well, how do I start to implement these things? Because I believe in what they're saying. I believe that getting clarity on what matters most and getting rid of the rest and not living a life of shoulds
Mhm.
and
But
choosing a
how do
life
you get there? Like, how do you
right.
get from where you are, where you're
Exactly.
there, you're
Yeah,
totally there. You get it. You go, yeah, I know. What do I do?
exactly. And so
So,
I
what
thought,
was
well,
your
I'm
first
trained
step?
in this.
Yeah.
And the things that, I mean, it's not like I knew how to do the project. It's how to set up the structure to create a successful project. And it was this method, you talked about PMP in the beginning. And
Mhm.
I was Googling, what does that mean the other day? Because I need to describe it to other people that don't know what that is. And ultimately, it's a structure to achieve success with a repeatable process that you can take and apply that gets you in the path of knowing exactly where you're going, first of all,
Mhm.
clarity of the outcome, and understanding why you want that. A lot of times when you think about, so I had a project that one of them was with Homeland Security, and this is going to be a mouthful, but presidential directive to replace all the employee badges across the cabinet level agencies with something that had biometrics in it, so that it wasn't just like a driver's license that you could put your picture on, or
Mhm.
that you would have around your neck, but that it would verify that you are who you say you are in a way
Right.
that's more trusted. And so for the 50,000 people around the country for Homeland Security, it was to change the way they were doing things on a regular basis, to change out their badging system. And I was like, well, that sounds like a real ball. Woohoo, let's go change the badge process. That sounds really inspiring. But that's really not what it was. It was how to keep people from getting blown up on a plane. That's what it
Mm.
was, right? That's why Homeland Security was created, was to help protect us from terrorism or from things that are trying to hurt us and to take away our safety and our freedom, right? And so how what we were doing was so in the vertebrae, if you will. It was part of what was going to keep us from getting the wrong people in the door that were going to have access to all of that information. And so by doing this whole new process, we were creating a system that was going to help make sure that only the people that need that information are getting it, and that we're keeping out the people that shouldn't have that information that could really make an impact to our country. Very
Mhm.
different, right? So when you show up to work to change a process, that's let's change out the badging process versus let's come in and protect our citizens from getting blown up.
It's
That's
a
cool.
mindset shift for sure, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So when you think about your own life, is it really just to live a better life? Well, that's okay. But why? What is it that we are going to get out of it? What is the outcome that we're going for?
Mhm.
And ultimately, life is a collection of feelings. That's it. People are like, what do you want? What's your mission? What's your purpose? Well, I want to live a life that I love the experience of.
Mhm.
So it really comes back to, how do I want my life to feel? And that helps
Good
people,
point.
I've found, get out of that mind. Like when I call it like a snow globe. Like when your head's like this and you got snow everywhere, like how can you possibly think straight? How do you know what you want? And some people would say, well, what do you want instead? I'm like, I don't know. I just don't want this. I just don't want this. And I don't know where to go next. And that's how people get stuck. And
Mhm.
so I have a program called Walk the Talk Weekend, which I have one coming up next week, actually. But it's called Walk the Talk Weekend. It's a 2.5 day program, and it helps people get three things. The first day is all about clarity.
Mhm.
And it's all about taking the snow globe and like, let's breathe. Think about what it is that we want this life to feel like, because we
Mhm.
can tap into that, right? But what we don't want to feel anymore, I don't want to be stressed, I don't want to feel like this anymore, doesn't give anybody direction. If you want,
Right.
how do you want to feel instead? Well, I want to have joy. I want to feel motivated. Okay, well, what's something that would be in your life that could give you that feeling?
Mm.
It opens
Yeah.
up a whole nother range of things.
Mhm.
So even, for example, like in this case with the badging system for employees, they decided that that was one of the key things that was going to get that, right? But there are other
Right.
ways as well that you could help keep America safe. It doesn't That's not the only way, right? If not the badge, what else, right? What are
Mhm.
other things you can put in place? Same thing with our own lives. When you think about, if it's is it the job or is it something else? How else can I get money if that's what it's about? Well, I want money because I want to be able to fund something that I enjoy doing. Okay, well, what do you enjoy doing? What could
Mhm.
you incorporate? Maybe it is just how you look at your job. Maybe consultants out there that are working, I had a boss who changed my life in so many ways. And I'll just put it out there. Raleigh Quinn is amazing. He went from, I followed him to three different firms. I started at
Mhm.
Bearing Point. He went to PwC. I went to PwC. He went to EY. I went to EY, just because people enjoy working with him and his
Right.
spirit, and he's like super smart. But he was all about tip of the spear. He used to say, we're here with the tip of the spear to touch the mission. That's what we're
Mm.
here to do, not just
Right.
the time card system for employees, but like, what
Right.
is that doing to touch the mission?
Making that association, associating the feeling with
Yeah,
the action, the purpose.
it's huge.
And Jamrazi, Mr. Jamrazi, he shared that life is a collection of feelings. He said, "I really like that." So thanks
Yeah,
for sharing that. That touched me as well. Your life is a collection of feelings. Like it truly is. It's the experience, and the experience is how it's cataloged in the brain. Is literally the calling card is the emotion.
yeah,
So what
it
we remember
is.
first is the emotion. And
Yep,
when we look back at photos from vacations, or maybe when we got married, or some life event, we feel the emotion.
exactly.
So that's so poignant. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's great to see you, Deanna, tuning in from Chicago. Great to see you today. So,
Well,
let
I
us
think,
know if you have any questions, as you tune in to the show, whether it be live now or watching the replay later. And if this is something that relates to you, are we living a life of shoulds? And then the taking that first step and understanding, like, the snow globe that
Yeah.
you shared, which is your brain in high beta. It's got
Okay.
all these thoughts going on.
Right.
Taking the moment to reflect and calm down so you can
Yeah.
think. Because by the way, when your brain is a snow globe and everything's going around and you can't prioritize, you can't think, you actually have to calm your body down to
Hmm.
lower the agitated brain waves so you can actually think and have the
Yeah.
clarity, because until you do, it's not happening. So you're not going to be able to come to a revelation moving at 90 miles an hour. Then you have to stop.
Yeah,
You have to.
exactly. Well, and then what, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then you've got the clarity, and it's thinking about what is the impact, what is the outcome, what do you want to feel?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we think about tip of the spear, we think about touching the mission. It's like, so when you have that feeling, if it's something you want to have meaningful in your life, like how can you create meaning? Sometimes it's just language. Sometimes it could just be, my team thought we were just replacing badges, but now they know that they're out there making a difference, being able to do this. And
Mm-hmm.
it brings a whole different level of energy to
It
your team,
does.
to your mission. And when I first started running our Homeland Security account at Ernst & Young, it was to help build the account and, grow the account. And so it was creating a team around that. And anybody who would join the team is like, you can report me to HR if you want. But if you don't love this country, I don't want you on my team. Because the mission of my client is to
Mm-hmm.
protect and keep Americans safe, right? So if you don't believe in that, go find another one that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm. All right.
and I, because that, if you don't bring that passion, if you don't believe in the mission, to in your
Mm-hmm.
heart, and if you can't see the connection of how that relates to you and your role, then how can you possibly enjoy it in a way that's actually going to make a difference? You can come up with such bigger solutions, such bigger thinking that
Mm-hmm.
becomes fun, right? And I remember, I'm going to throw another one out there, John Gearin, one of my favorite bosses of all time. He, when I first interviewed to do consulting, it was so funny because I was transitioning out a career of operations management. My first 4 years out of college, I was doing something a little different before I switched into consulting. And I was interviewing. He said, if you don't like not knowing what you're doing, this is not the job for you. And I thought, okay, sometimes we don't
Mm-hmm.
have to know what we're doing in order to be successful and solve
Yeah,
things.
can I pause right there, because that's really
Yeah,
important, because
absolutely.
a lot of people who tune into this show and a lot of people that I coach, I know for sure, are high achievers and they identify with being high achievers and they like to know where they're going. So
Yeah,
here's the thing. Here's the thing that's a little scary. Now we might be a little bit more used to it than we were pre-2020, because the last couple of years have been very difficult to know where we're going anyway. A lot of uncertainty, which brings
right.
stress.
Lots of
But
uncertainty.
people still want to know. So here's the thing. Once you do calm yourself down, once you start getting that clarity and connecting to, okay, this is not just how I don't want to feel, but this is how I want to feel.
Yeah.
What are the things, the elements, the actions that need to be in my life to and, and be that catalyst for that feeling? Okay, not having to have a minutely detailed plan is also okay.
Well, the how, right? Tony Robbins says he calls it the tyranny of how. Before, and I remember my mom, sometimes I get these big ideas. Anyone who knows me, they're like, sometimes. Like, let's do this. And somebody will say, well, how are you going to do that? I'm like, I don't know, but we're going to find a way. And my mom, I remember when I went to start Journey Fuel, I mean, that's a big transition to go from getting a paycheck every month to finding a way to get a paycheck. And that isn't really regular. And she's like, well, how are you going to do that? And I would get kind of, like tense. It hit a nerve. Don't ask me that. That stresses me out. I don't need to know how right now. So don't ask me how I'm going to do that.
Mhm.
Because then, as people start, it goes back to the shoulds. Like people think you should know the answers to these. Well, if I would have waited until I knew what the hell I was doing to start my own company, I never would have done it. Ever.
Anybody who's an entrepreneur knows, and a
Right?
successful entrepreneur knows, that most of the part about being an entrepreneur and owning a business is you're building the plane while you're flying it. That's
Right?
the thing. If you have to have a plan, you have to have it perfect. Don't go in to be an entrepreneur, because you need to be able to build the plane while flying it. And there's also a
Oh,
great
yeah.
quote I want to share with you. And if you've been on Career Coffee Chat show or seen the live show before, you've seen this quote. But I want to share with you this.
Oh, I love that.
You don't have to understand all the details to be a massive success. This sits at my desk
Love that.
right there to remind me, rapid planner, project management background, I don't need to know all the details to be a massive success, because this is
Right.
what we found out. This is really interesting. The more you minutely plan your path, your journey, the less opportunity you have for happy surprises, opportunities. They don't have room to get in if you have it all shut up with your little nice, neat little plan. And it might also not be as agile and flexible to circumstances changing you'd like it to be. So,
Well, and on that point, right? So what I was so excited. So Steve Jobs said, "You can't connect the dots going forward. You can only connect the dots going backwards." And when I first heard that, I'm like, I've done connect the dots, and I've never gone connect the dots backwards. Like that's just not. But then I thought about it because he's brilliant. I thought he must know what he's talking about. But then I started thinking about it. It's like if I would flashback Scooby Doo style, right, to all the random things that have happened in my life, they're not that random. I mean, if I hadn't started working at the State Department, helping them stand up a cybersecurity project when I didn't know how to do that, I was helping do the project management of it. I didn't do any of that until flash forward, probably 15 years later, helping the state of California create their own cybersecurity program. But I didn't do that in between. But I knew their language now. It's like, oh, you mean like certification and accreditation? Like I sounded like I know what I was talking about. Oh yeah, like the poems. And I started using this language. I had no idea really how to do it, but I understood the language now, which I never would have known. And in between, I got to help stand up while I was helping with the funding, oversee some of the funding for $1 billion that was given to the Department of Defense to stand up a center of excellence. And here we go, big mouthful, for psychological health and traumatic brain injury. And I don't know how to do that, but I know how to stand up the office around it for how do you get back to what is the outcome, right? It's not to stand at the center of excellence. It's not to spend $1 billion and have it all gone by the end of the fiscal year, right? It's about what is the outcome. We want to help people who are going out there fighting for our freedom be more resilient to avoid getting PTSD. We want people who have had that to be able to come back and heal from that, right? That's the outcome. So what is the infrastructure that is going to be necessary in order to create that outcome? And what does that look like from how do you know? So when we talk about path and details, project management, the nerd in me loves having the path mapped out, right? The trick is knowing where you're going. So if you know what the outcome is, it's not just, it's like, I know a lot of people in here are probably professionals working in the industry where, you do IT changes, you're changing a new information system. Well, it's not to change the system. It's to make something better. What are you doing? What is the outcome? And ultimately, you might in the beginning be like, you know what, this sucks. It sucks. This is not going to work 3 months in. So do we just keep implementing it? Or do we stop and be like, well, that's not hitting, our outcome. So when you do put the structure in place, and this is where, when I created Journey Fuel, what I realized that the consulting tools and methods that we use, that doesn't matter what the scope of the project is. It doesn't matter if it's psychological health or, cybersecurity. Doesn't matter
if it's personal, professional, right? Mm-hmm.
Right. It's all about how do you help people know what they want? What is the outcome? How do you get them going the right direction? Because, and that, so it's funny, when I was at Ernst & Young, I was talking to a partner that I was trying to get on Partner Path, and it was a partner in the audit side. So they would do audits, and I'd been doing project management for, 15 years at that point. It's like, you really need a specialty. I'm like, you're not going to get promoted unless you have a specialty. I thought, well, isn't that what I do? Like, is that a specialty? So I had to think about, well, how do you describe what that specialty is? Because he looked at it as you do this, or you do this, you do a technology, or you do this thing. So project management, like, what is that specialty? Well, what it is it's helping extract from other people, asking the right questions to get them to their own answers. And if they don't have the answer, to help set up, well, how are you going to know when you have the answer? And then what resources do you need, right? So you set the outcome, and this is what we do in Walk the Talk Weekend. So we have the clarity, right, which is the same thing. What is it that you want as the outcome? And then how do you create, on the second day, we do certainty. How do you create certainty? that that's really what it is that a should. So, okay, I want this, but what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? And am I sure? Or is that something that, oh, I'm supposed to make a difference? I'm supposed
Mm.
to be healthy,
So if
you
I
know?
could summarize really quick, so we've
Yeah.
got the the clarity portion, we've
Uh-huh.
got the feeling, what was that feeling translate to as an action, a thing, or an input we can put into our lives, or something
Yeah.
we add back in or re-engage. And then what you're talking about right now is understanding the journey by
Yeah.
which to achieve what they truly want,
Yeah.
whether it be to insert those things that give them joy, happiness, fulfillment, etc., or whether it's a bigger journey. And
Right.
then, most importantly, asking the why, because before we started the show, we started talking a little bit around a lot of people don't really necessarily do the due diligence that they should do. So, that root cause discovery, like, why is it that I want to Oh, what I really want is I want to be able to buy a Mercedes and live in River Oaks,
Right.
whatever, right? So why? Why do you want that?
Right.
When you really start peeling back the layers, it's a societal expectation,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't bring happiness. Because what's really interesting, the more I study neuroscience and psychology, the more we understand that you can be wildly successful, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're happy.
Right. It
Happiness
goes
and
back to
success,
feelings. Right.
society's idea of success anyway, the money, the whatever, those two are not necessarily related. And I think now we're starting to see a generation who is challenging
Yeah.
the shallow, superficial trappings of society's
Right.
expectations. Like, they're redefining what success is. And success for some people, and I ask people, what does success mean to you? So I'm going to ask you, Stacy, what does success mean to you?
Yeah. Success to me means that, and this might sound a little woo woo, but the saying that I articulated for myself that I have on my wall is that I want to create the biggest ripple effect of all time by being who I'm here to be and helping others do the same and bring souls and humanity alive. Because success to me is we're here to be who we are, right? And that's part of the process. When I was talking about Walk the Talk weekend and getting clarity, people are like, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? The purpose is to be who you're here to be. It's that basic. It really is, because we're on this hunt, right? What is our purpose? Well, you came onto the planet with a certain DNA that nobody else has. And so to me, success is, what is life like when I actually am that? Because I'm the only one who can be that. And what does that look like? That's a ripple effect that each individual can make for themselves. You're here to be you. So by focusing on what is it that I want my life to feel like, tapping into your soul, you've got a lot of information in there. What is it that you want life to feel like? That's coming from somewhere in your DNA that you were
Mhm.
born with, to have this feeling. And what could give me that feeling? Following that scent, helping yourself get that. And because sometimes people are like, oh, it's so selfish to focus. No, 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 no. It's selfish to not be who you're here to be, because you're choosing not to use what you came to the planet to have and let it grow, right? So
Mhm.
so success is, if you can have the courage and the confidence to just show up as who you are, ultimately that will make your own difference. For example, like doctors, right? Let's make a difference. Let's help people get better. Well, if I just said I'm going to be a doctor, but I haven't, maybe I don't want to be a doctor. Maybe I'm not into chemistry, right? Maybe that's not my thing. Maybe I like the idea of helping people, but chemistry is not my thing. But maybe it is. Maybe I'm, so attracted to molecules and watching how all this stuff fits together. And then I'm like, oh, when I do that, what's the next step? Oh, I want to be a doctor. And now you're already making a ripple effect because you wanted to find a way to hone and grow your skill that ultimately led to you being a doctor. So
Mhm.
we will make our own impact if all we do is experience life as who we are. And so my definition of success and why I created Journey Fuel and why I created Walk the Talk weekend is because if we don't take 2.5 days to breathe and tap into, wait a minute, let's pause. What is it that we're doing with our lives? How do we want it to feel? What would that look like? Helping people identify that, helping people get certainty on that second day, right? How do you get certainty that that's really what it is? Tapping into who
Mhm.
you are. Like, is this who I'm here to be? And what are my core values associated with that? And then when you find out what your core values are, which is like 5 to 7 is what 5 to 7 things that this is what matters most to me. Now you have something that you can guide your choices with to be authentic. So then the day 3 is activation. But in order to have activation, I could go back and fill in all the blanks of all the things we've talked about, and it would take forever. But the bottom line really is just to have faith that these tools that we know work with large organizations have been missing from the
Mhm.
personal development space. And that's the key to success of being able to help individuals start to extract in a process that works with some of the biggest organizations on the planet to get to the answer of where do I want to be? What do I want my life to feel like? What does that look like? What matters to me? How do I set up my life to only have those things, my 5 to 7 values? If every choice I make is a litmus test, and then to activate that, now that I know what does and doesn't align, the shoulds, it's a should if it doesn't line up. So not doing that anymore. And then how do you now take it to the next level? How do you now do the project plan? How do you take, okay, I know my outcome. I know this is for real what I want. How do I know when I'm there? What are some of the tools and resources that I can, use to get me the answers that I need? Because you're not going to have the answers. So who does? How are you going to find the answers? Somebody's got them, and if not, what's the next step you can take to get closer to getting the answer? The big question I used to get, I know we're on time, but the big question I used to get all the time in project management. So anybody who's a project manager probably can be like, I still get that. When you build a project schedule in Microsoft Office, right, in a project, you have to put dates or the whole schedule means nothing, right? So if I don't have a date for something, it might as well never create a schedule in the first place because it screws up the whole thing. So you got to have a date, but you'd say, well, you'd go to people that have never done stuff before and you say, okay, so what do you need to do in order to get there? Like, I don't know. And I said, okay, but I need a date. So when are you going to know what your next steps are? So now I have a follow-up date, right? So for ourselves, don't just not put a date. Don't just not do the next thing because you don't know what it is. The next date is, okay, by this time, I'm going to take 2 steps to get closer to getting what I need to know in order to do the next 5 steps.
Yeah, can we pause right there really quick? Because, I want to make sure that people understand that they don't have to eat the elephant, as you
Right.
mentioned. It's when you're putting together your outline, if you will, to get you to closer to your goal or closer to
Yeah.
where, living that life that you're meant to live. It's incremental and it
Yeah.
will evolve the closer you get to living the life you want to live, and also the easier it becomes. So people don't really understand that. First of all, it seems big and scary and hard and all these things, but when you take these little baby steps,
Yeah.
that builds momentum. And when the
Yep.
momentum starts to grow and we start to see more, evolution and transformation of ourselves and our lives, then it becomes easier.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. It's a compounding effect.
It is.
So, Stacy, I'm going to challenge you really quickly because, as someone who has a consulting background as well,
Yeah.
we know good and well that when consultants leave, sometimes, particularly with process improvement work,
Yeah.
thing goes,
Yeah.
nothing happens.
Yeah.
So, what are we going to do to identify the saboteurs that tend to
Yeah.
get in the way after the consultants and the motivational people
Yeah.
walk the room?
Yeah. Well, and that's what I do in my accelerator program. But it's setting it up so that you have the reinforcement already there.
Mm-hmm.
So then just, for context, so the Walk the Talk Weekend program gets the clarity and the certainty and starts to get you moving. But like you said, if we left it there, now you're on your own to go learn the ability. It goes back to change management. You have awareness, you have
Right.
desire, knowledge, but you need ability and reinforcement in order to get there. So the ability is, okay, well, so what can you put in place? So now don't presume you're going to do it without anyone.
Right.
I think the consultants, they call it.
Mr. Jim Rossi, he mentioned, this is really interesting. It reminds him of Ikigai, which I like that book. That book came across my path when I was on vacation this summer, and it's a fantastic book, very short read. It's How to Live a Long, Successful, Happy, Fulfilled Life,
Mm,
based on some very simple principles that were
right.
highly researched. So I don't know if you've read that book. If you haven't, definitely
No, but I'm
recommend it.
gonna
And he
write
said
that
slightly different
down.
perspective, but it somehow complements my understanding. So that's great.
Yeah.
Hope he can come back and read, listen to the recording later because it really is a great outline and helping people understand like how to first get the clarity. First of
Yeah.
all, calm down. Calm the brain, get the clarity, understand the vision, understand how to connect the
Hmm.
vision to action, and then how to create that outline, and then how to sustain the
Right.
gains and
Right.
continue the momentum.
Well, and that trick there that you were talking about is, they if in consulting, and I don't have to go back to that too much, but I mean that is what I'm bringing that other people don't have to that industry, that they don't have to go learn how to do it. That's the beauty. You don't have to go learn how project management. You don't have to learn change management. You don't need to learn how to do process reengineering. I kind of sneak that into what I'm doing. I'm not talking about change management in my programs. I'm talking about the journey and the treasures and the, things that you want to feel. You don't hear those words in project management every day, but it's the same method, same application, right? So then when you were talking about it, if a client only wants you to create a plan and leave, we know they're not going to be successful without the
We won't
implementation
implement,
team.
right?
So, and it's like even me, every coach needs a coach. Chris Howard says you can't read the label from inside the jar. So investing in yourself until you get the ability is important. So I wouldn't presume you can do it on your own unless you want to go spend 20 years honing some skills that you really don't need all of them. It's about which things are going to apply, but investing in yourself. We pay to go to college and learn stuff, but we never learn how to be authentic. We don't learn how to bring out what we're here to be. There is no college for that, right? But we pay for it. What would you pay to be able to wake up to some life that you actually love waking up to versus
Well, Stacy has been a fantastic guest, so I appreciate all of you, tuning in now or later, watching the replay. Of course, this will be available on Career Coffee Chat podcasts as well towards the end of the year. I encourage you to sign up for the YouTube channel, the Career Coffee Chat YouTube channel, which is you can find that by searching Coach E Urban. Sign up, and if you subscribe, you'll get all of these live shows and notifications for the podcast when they arrive. So Stacy's back and she's she's at a different camera. So we'll make sure we wrap up the show. Stacy's good to see you. Got a slightly different camera show here.
yeah,
So we want to
fun,
wrap up the
right?
show today. And I want to thank you so much for being on the show today, sharing those insights and how to shift from living in a world of shoulds and maybe slave to that, being a way that we don't want to be, and how to move into a space that's more fulfilling and brings more personal success.
Yeah.
So, before we wrap up the show, how can people reach out to you?
First of all, don't bang your hands on the table when you're getting excited on a podcast. You can go to journeyfuelgift.com, because I want to gift everybody who's listening the program that I kept talking about, because it's kind of like telling a working mom to take a nap. It's like, that's great. And how I'm going to do that. So I don't want to talk about something and not give people access to that. I'm going to gift that to people. It's regularly an $879 program. Just go on journeyfuelgift.com, and that's where you can sign up for the Walk the Talk weekend program that I've been talking about, because ultimately in the end, like, you can follow me on Facebook, you can do all that stuff, which, if you want to, at your Journey Fuel, but sign up for this 2.5-day program and give yourself the gift of getting clarity, certainty, and activating it, at least to give it a chance, right? Because, and I'm not, of course, I make sales from, I have my company because I make sales, right? That's not why I'm in this business, though. I mean, that's how I fund being able to do this for people. But this is free, so it doesn't cost you anything. But I'm passionate about helping people live lives they love waking up to. That's why I do this. So when I'm encouraging you to do it, it's because I know that if you're just who you're here to be, that ripple effect is going to be massive if everybody started doing that, and your life will be I can't even describe how much better. So that would be the best way to get a hold of me is journeyfuelgift.com. Sign up, do it for yourself, and give it. It's free. Give it to yourself, and
And if you're
really in
watching
the
from
end, use your
YouTube,
feeling.
that'll be in the YouTube notes. And of course, we
Yeah,
can add that as a comment on LinkedIn as well. Well,
yeah.
Stacy's been a big pleasure to having you on the show. Thank you so much. And for those of you tuning in either now or later, my friends, keep elevating. Until next time.